Hey everyone, Off the Mic Sports Network here. Another edition off the top rope. Big picture coming out of WrestleMania weekend. As you know, now we turn away from the Raw after WrestleMania. We have NXT and SmackDown coming up. Um, the one thing that I think needs to be talked about more, and is going to be a topic of discussion as we know we move forward in the days and weeks and months to come, is I think there is a really significant power struggle going on behind the scenes within WWE and TKO. Because if you've paid attention to the last 2 years of this company, and I firmly believe that Triple H is the right man to lead creative. Is he perfect? No. But he's absolutely not fucking Vince McMahon. This is way better than any of the shit that we had gotten for the last 15 years. And Vince McMahon had some good moments, but he didn't care about us. Triple H, yes, a lot of this is motivated by money, and TKO is a little bit of a different ownership group with the USC mindset, and obviously the price hikes in ticket sales have kind of been a problem. But you know what? That's what you got to do when you know, hey, you're in demand, and that's one thing. But anyway, so really, what's been fascinating for me to watch in the last 2 years is the struggle between Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, and Triple H, Paul Levesque. Because we know these guys, feuded on screen many years as wrestlers. But now we're talking about two men, like actual men behind the scenes. Like I said, I'm not talking about Triple H. I'm not talking about Triple H and The Rock. I'm talking about Dwayne Johnson and Paul Levesque. That's what I'm talking about here, because that's really what the struggle is. And seeing what has transpired in the last two WrestleManias, we got rewarded with a great ending because there was compromises made. There was documentaries that were really not public. You could tell The Rock was really pissed off with how, WrestleMania 40 turned out, even though the right decision was made, and he bit the bullet to for the benefit of the company and understanding that Cody finishing his story was in the best interest of the people. Even though The Rock has made very abundantly clear that even though he is the people's champion, he could give two shits about the people. I've said that for weeks and months on end. He is a fraud. He is a fraud. He is a talented fraud who is one of the most charismatic people that has ever graced any part of the entertainment business. But he is a fucking fraud when he tells you he is the people's champion. He's full of shit. Okay? Let's get to that point first. But seeing what happened he publicly in 2023 basically says, hey, we were close to potentially getting a match done with me and Roman, to getting to the point of, hey, he shoehorns his way in after, Cody won the Royal Rumble for the second time, which clearly was the plan, and then gets disrupted where Rock, hey, I'm just coming in, I'm going to take Cody's spot. And people blew that shit to death, and it ultimately spawned off this insane timeline of events where we got heel Rock, some of the best work of his entire career, which came out of thin air, which shows you just how fucking talented he is. And it gave us Cody finishing his story in one of the greatest main events of WrestleMania to cap off one of the greatest WrestleManias of all time. Then, as I've talked about on this channel, Rock did next to nothing since that. And he had two ready-made storylines that he could have done heading into WrestleMania 41. He had Cody Rhodes, which was set up on the Raw after WrestleMania in a weird segment, and he had Roman Reigns, which was the dream match that we all thought we were going to get, that he wanted to have at WrestleMania 40. And all that happened in the remainder of that year was he showed up at Bad Blood, stood out there for a couple minutes, gave a hand gesture, and walked away. And that was rumored, hey, that wasn't planned. It's just, hey, he was there, and he just showed up. Led to nothing. Didn't even show up at Survivor Series after the Bloodline, the whole Bloodline thing in War Games with CM Punk being involved. Like, there was nothing on that. You turn the calendar to January 6th in the Netflix debut. He shows up as a happy, hand-gladding babyface, and he basically tells Cody, hey, you've done a great job. You're the face of the company. And then he gives the Ula follow to Roman Reigns after, Roman beats Solo for the Ula Fala, and nothing happens. Shows up the next night on NXT, and hey, it's fine and dandy. I'm just here to support my daughter, who's the NXT general manager, even though he didn't really say that. But he was sporadically around there. He has a babbling promo at the end. where he's cursing words on CW television, which I'm sure CW folks didn't really appreciate because they had probably had to pay some FCC fines. And then Rock disappears. And then as I light him up because I sensed that we weren't going to get Rock Roman, it's announced, hey, SmackDown. Look what's happening. Hey, we've got SmackDown in New Orleans, and Rock's going to show up and make some sort of announcement. It's announced that WrestleMania is going to be in New Orleans. And then he has that weird-ass promo with Cody Rhodes and babbling a bunch of nonsense about, I need you to be my champion. I need a brother and all this. I want you to be my champion. I need your soul. I want your soul. And, we have a tape video the next week. He shows up at Elimination Chamber. The John Cena heel turn happens. And that's the last time we've seen The Rock. That's the last time. First or second week of March. I think it was like the first week of March. It was like the first couple days of March. And that's the last time we saw him. No involvement with Cody Rhodes. No involvement with Roman Reigns. Neither one of those matches happened. You had that ready, set up in a gift out of thin fucking air. And he did absolutely fucking nothing for either one of those matches. You could have done good business. And I'm sure that WWE realized this too, because they're smart enough to realize, hey, this stuff got out of thin air. But here's the problem. The Rock is this type of guy who thinks the world revolves around him. And that doesn't work in the entertainment business. At least, hey, when you're on a week-to-week television product, and Rock should know that, but he doesn't care. He's on the board of directors. He's one of the most famous people in the world, one of the most followed Instagram people in the world. Like, he doesn't care about that. So there's been a lot of speculation about what the fuck is going on backstage. And I wouldn't be the first one to tell you firsthand knowledge because I don't know anybody in this, but there's some interesting things being floated out there. Jonathan Coachman, who was in WWE for a long time, does a podcast. Coach is great. He was on ESPN. He's now got his own wrestling podcast. And he speculated Rock may be trying to get Triple H fired. And maybe that's what's going on here. And this power struggle is leading ultimately potentially to Vince McMahon being thrust back into power because Rock has some loyalty to Vince. Vince gave him his career, whatever. Triple H and Rock, I don't know what the relationship really is there, but it's so strange to me that you could have such an iconic moment like you did at Elimination Chamber, and the storyline basically gets paid off with Travis Scott in the main event of WrestleMania. What are we doing? Like, that's not who Triple H is as a booker. We saw him do stuff in NXT. Like, I know he's made some flaws and made some mistakes in what he's done. Heavily relying on a celebrity like that after you had the moment at the previous Premium Live event to set this up with The Rock, and he's nowhere to be found, barely even mentioned in the build. Like, it tells me Rock has more power. He's doing whatever the fuck he wants. Nobody's going to tell him no. Triple H won't tell him no, even though, I would totally sign up to see a power struggle, cage match. But, hey, like I said, this isn't about Triple H. This isn't about Triple H and The Rock. This is about Dwayne. Like I said, this is about Dwayne Johnson and Paul Levesque. And from a business perspective, The Rock is just thrown away so much money. But again, it's just about him. And WWE needs to seriously evaluate what is the better option of how do we pursue forward as a company. Do we rely on one of the most famous people in the world who clearly does not have a ton of interest in doing anything unless it's on his time? Or do we rely on the guy who's been consistently booking good stuff and has us on the best run of creative that we've had in probably at least 10, 15 years or so, maybe even longer than that? This is as hot as WWE has ever been. And a lot of it is due to the creative decision-making of one Paul Levesque. And here's the thing. Everybody could say, yeah, well, we got a great build at WrestleMania out of this whole thing. Yeah, so what? Rock had a chance to make more money out of this, and he threw 2 matches in the trash can to do what? 4 shows this year? He's been on 4 shows. Dude's on the board of directors. Don't give me the crap that he's busy. If he had the time, he would show up. And when you tell me that you can't show up to Wrestle fucking Mania in Las Vegas, you can't show up to 2 nights of WrestleMania, can't even show up to the Raw after WrestleMania, and you get involved in maybe the biggest heel turn since Hulk Hogan, the biggest heel turn since Hulk Hogan in 1996. And that's the payoff that you give us. You can't tell me that you're serious about business if that's the decisions that you make. Again, it put Paul Levesque in a completely compromised position. I empathize with him, but he deserves some blame for this too, because he's the one making the decisions. But at the same time, it's like when you got a guy you can't rely on, and a name as big as a rock, you're caught between literally a rock and a hard place. You literally are. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this thing gets handled, because I have a feeling that this is going to come to a head relatively soon, because you won't you could tell here's where I kind of noticed things. Triple H was very public in the past week in basically telling the fans, "Hey, don't be critics," or whatever. And I thought that was really strange, because Triple H hasn't really, been really defensive of his booking publicly since he took over. But that raised my alarm bells a little bit. I was like, wait a second. Yeah, this lackluster build hasn't been good, but I've talked about it on this channel. I think The Rock is to blame, and he really ruined a lot of WrestleMania this year, because it's just, that's the reality of the situation. He's The Rock. He has a lot of the power within this place, being on the board of directors, and he had a chance to make two big money matches and did neither one of them, and basically has done nothing, and is basically, I think, cost WWE some money, even though they're not like, deprived of money, but they could have, had mega matches to sell, and they didn't do it. So it is what it is. But again, I think the big thing, this is going to come to a head at some point. I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I really hope, for all the critics of Triple H, Paul Levesque, I hope that he wins out, because him and Stephanie running WWE and being at the top of the food chain is what's best for business. I understand people don't like the McMahon family because, hey, Linda's in the cabinet and Vince is a deplorable human being. But Triple H and Stephanie have tried to do the best they can to distance themselves from that style of booking. You could say, oh, with all the MAGA, adjacent type things. Guys, it's still been a much better product than it was under Vince McMahon. I don't want to ever go back to something like that. And I fear if they lean to the Rock side of things, and maybe the speculation about, the hostile takeover from Vince, that has me concerned, because I do not want to go back to that as a wrestling fan. And everybody who's just complaining about, hey, WWE has kind of ruined my concept of wrestling. It's like, listen, you guys could be watching AEW right now. And AEW is basically, 10 times as worst as what's going on in WWE right now, because they don't have a creative leader. They just do whatever they want. They have a bunch of power-hungry, money-grubbing people in control. And I've been critical of them because they have a lot of top talent who have creative control. Rock is a board member. He's the fucking Rock. He can do whatever he wants. That's even more problematic. And somehow they made chicken salad out of chicken shit last year in WrestleMania 40 build. But then to see what happened at WrestleMania 41 as a result of this was just so incredibly disappointing. So anyway, that's my take on this situation for now. It's going to be something to monitor, I think, for the rest of 2025, because I think something big is going to happen here, because something is the disconnect. And this has been something I've talked about on this channel for a long time. The disconnect between creative and between, the hierarchy, mainly Dwayne Johnson, is just stark. It's really just they're on two completely different wavelengths. And it's led to some really just strange decision making over the last couple years. Last year it worked, this year it didn't. So somebody's going to win out at some point, because this is not going to be sustainable. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.